Well, there are, as you heard from Will, so many exciting things happening around here. Because the information is a lot and there's such important information, we're going to be saying it a lot, trying to get it through to text messages, more kind of newsletters during the week. But let me just give you a snapshot of what is happening 6 weeks for the next 6 weeks, okay? 6 weeks from today, Will just said, first Sunday, December 8th at 414 Brandon Street. I would mark your calendar, invite someone, but bring whoever's coming with you, bring them and yourself. Get there early. Guys, our capacity is about doubling. Our auditorium capacity, unfortunately, is not doubling. It will be more, but we're expecting over-capacity crowds that day because we've been at capacity in this building for several weeks now, which is awesome. But that's going to be just a huge day where we step into this miracle from God that He's been working for our good for a long time, and we're going to step into that. December 1st, you heard, no morning gatherings, team night that night. It's going to be massive. We need you to RSVP for it if you haven't yet. Those of you joining a team, some of you, I know there wasn't as much clapping as I thought there would be. I think there was clapping from all the 119 people we've added, but some of you weren't clapping because you were hoping we would get to 200 without you. Sorry. We need you. We need you, and you don't want to miss it. Listen, you will be able to say that I was serving the first day we opened that building. You'll tell stories that we tell about this place from 10 years ago when we stepped in here, October 12th, 2014. So that's happening. November 24th, the last Sunday we will gather here. We will kind of close a decades-long chapter. Oh, man, I'm going to have all the feels that day. So that's happening 2 weeks from today. We launch our Hope Project for this year. That's right. Just because we're moving into a building, we are not foregoing the Hope Project. We want to continue, even as we provide a new space for our community to say and declare we care and exist for more than just ourselves, don't we? And 1 week from today, November 3rd, it is likely the last Sunday we will ever have baptisms in this space. So for those of you who started following Jesus here or before you got here, next week is great. I'm glad to baptize anybody who wants me to baptize, and Will's glad to do the same. And we've never offered this before, but he and I will even baptize you together simultaneously if you want that. So we've never made that offer. So that's next Sunday. A week from tomorrow, obviously, is a Monday, November 4th. That's a really important date that I want to let everyone know, especially those of you watching online. On Monday, November 4th, our equipment, a lot of the production equipment we use now, will start exiting, or what they call decommissioning it out of this space so that it can be installed in our new home at 414 Brandon. That means we're getting closer to opening there, but it also means November 10th, 17th, and 24th, we will not be live streaming our services. So for those of you, wherever you watch around the world, sorry, we will try to get the sermon up sometime early enough after it's done at 9 o'clock that Sunday. For those of you who are watching online, but you do live in San Francisco or the Bay Area, I really do want to encourage you, come be in the room for our last handful of Sundays here at 250 Stevenson, and Lord willing, December 8th, as we open the new building. Not that you would want to watch online that day, but for those of you who can't be there, we should be back to streaming if all of the installation and the equipment work. So there's nothing going on around here. Nothing going on in my personal life. We got a couple things that we're trying to get in on. But let me tell you something huge. The greatest concern that I've had, and I know a number of you have had since we said we're moving to 414 Brandon Street, is where in the world are we going to park for those of us that drive? Anybody have that concern? Yeah, it's funny. I go to these conferences around the nation. They're like, whenever you get a new building, you've got to have like one parking spot for every 1.6 human beings. I'm like, so then they asked me, knowing we bought a new building 2.5 years ago, hey Ben, how many parking spots came with your new building at Epic Church? It's such a fun conversation. And I tell them 3. We got 3 parking spots, and then the city asked us to turn all 3 of those into a sidewalk. So we do not have any parking spaces. But you guys, I got a text after 9 o'clock, so I didn't tell 9 o'clock. But over the last 2 weeks, we've had a new employee start on our staff team. His name's Ian Gray. He's amazing. He is incredible. We hired him to be out of investment banking to be our director of operations. He's been negotiating on your behalf to get you parking that's not like a mile away. And he texted me after 9 o'clock that yesterday he signed our contract to park literally next door at 424 Brandon Street. Not a small thing, like massive, like 100 spots, a great daily deal. You won't have to do the ticket thing, and we won't have to hand you a $10 for parking in the parking garage. So literally, lots of miracles upon miracles upon miracles, but that's one of them. And if you, that's a huge celebration moment. But if you want to just really pray in a further miracle, that lot is for sale right now. That's all I'm going to say today. You can also become the miracle. You can pave the way for the miracle. I'm like, so anyway, lots of emails in my inbox that were exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time last week. But for short term, for sure, we have secured it for every Sunday except for baseball game days. And even on baseball game days, we've secured parking within 2 blocks of our space, which is massive. The other great concern that we had for Giants home games. So can we just thank God and our team for making this happen? It's huge. It's huge. And would you pray for our staff team? We always are praying for you, and we'll not stop doing that. It has been a load for 2.5 years, and you can imagine there's about, 1,200 logistical items left to get us out of this building and get us into the next. And our team needs strength because of the load, and we need you as we ask you to step on the teams and step into a project. Be willing to do that with us. That would be a huge gift to us and really a gift to the future of our community and to the city. Today, however, we are closing out the Bring It Out series. And I am so grateful for what you've let me know that God has spoken to you through this series, and it will live on in the book and all those things. But next week I'll begin a brand new series called A City on the Hills, taking Jesus' framework of a city on the hill and making it plural just because of where we live, to talk about our posture towards Jesus and being a citizen of heaven and living in a place called San Francisco and the world that we currently inhabit. So that's what we'll do next week. But today we're putting Bring It Out to bed, and I'm really excited. I'm calling this message Start with the End. Start with the end. Here's what I want to know. There's 2 kinds of people in this room, and I'm going to have you raise your hands after I tell you the 2 kinds of people that we're going to break ourselves into. Some of us are so obsessed with the future, and others of us tend to live life one day at a time. At 9 o'clock, that survey was about 50-50, just by, statistical analysis, or just like what I thought. But how many of you would just say, hey, raise your hand, I'm obsessed with the future. I'm just really obsessed with the future. Yeah, like you're not even listening to the sermon. You're already thinking about tomorrow. And how many of you would raise your hand and say, I tend to take things day by day, And you either feel bad about where you land on that or you feel prideful about where you land on that, but that's not the point. What I want to say is wherever you land on that equation, there are inherent strengths to both of those postures and perspectives, but each of them also come with their caution. And I want to give you the caution. Here's the caution. If you, like me, are obsessed with the future, the caution is you could spend all of your time in idea land and never execute on the vision you claim to have. But if you are a day-by-day person, you could fail to set the overall direction for the trajectory of your life. And so if I were coaching like I get to do from time to time and helping people develop their life plan, I would ask you, hey, tell me about the vision of your life. Like, what is your life meant to be all about? And if you're thinking those kinds of thoughts and questions often, or if you took a few days, you'd come back and say to me, it'd be really inspiring, Ben, my life is supposed to be about... And I would be like, that's incredible. And then I would just ask you this question that you'll see on the screen. Are you connecting your daily life to what you say is the overall vision of your life? So if you're like, I want to be this kind of mom, I'd be like, well, I'm looking at your calendar. You didn't spend any time with your kids last week. Tell me more. I want to be this kind of employee. I want to have this kind of body. I want to have this kind of mind. I want to learn this. I want to get that degree. Then I would just go, hey, that's amazing. But are you connecting your daily reality to the thing you say is the thing for your life? And today what I want to do is give a message called Start with the End. We've got to have a vision, but then we've got to marry our daily reality to what we say is the vision for our lives, and better than that, what Jesus says his vision is for our lives as his followers. He wants us to go the distance in our faith. So many things are seasonal in life. Jesus does not intend for our following of him to be a seasonal reality. So if you have a Bible on you, we're going to be in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, verses 25 through 30. I want to ask you to stand with me. And as you're standing, again, I just want to say Jesus wants us to go the distance when it comes to our faith and our purpose. It is what Eugene Peterson has said, a long obedience in the same direction. And every person in this room, everyone watching online in real time or later on in the week or month, every one of us is on a path, which means we are headed towards a future. And is it the future we claim to have as the vision for our life? And is it the vision that Jesus has for our lives? Verse 25 of Luke 14, large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, Very strong language. I'll unpack it in a moment. If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. And he gives this analogy. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. Look at me real quick, and then we'll sit down. One question. Are you building a life and a faith where you will be able to finish? That's the intention of Jesus for you. You may have a seat. It's a weighty question, lots of weighty questions. And speaking of weighty, let's just get into what Jesus says. It doesn't seem to fit. Jesus gives a strong statement, and I don't want to back off the statement's strength, but I do want you to know we read elsewhere. Whenever you read something in Scripture and you're like, I'm not sure about this, what you want to do is you want to pair it with what else Jesus has said. This is why we want to have a daily habit of reading and meditating on and memorizing Scripture in our life. So what you can know is that so many other places Jesus said we should love our family. Are you with me? We should honor our mother and father. Is that in the first of the 10 Commandments? Yes, if Jesus is going to tell us to love our enemies, surely he wants us to love our families. But he is saying, I want you to have a higher allegiance than your wife, a higher allegiance than your children. I want you to have a higher allegiance than your parents, and that is to me. If you're going to follow me, I am the one that you've got to get on board with. And so it's a very strong kind of statement. And then he uses this analogy where he's just like, you don't want to be like the builder who started building and then realized, I don't have what it takes to finish this thing. You see, so many of us are great at starting, aren't we? Like, I can start with the best of them. Anybody else? I mean, I was so into new semesters in college. Not so much 4 months later, but at the beginning, I mean, the syllabus, I'm dominating it in my mind. Not in reality, but in my mind. We're really good at starting. Some of you are, like, you've been great at starting companies. A team of us started this church. Some of you are really great at starting exercise routines. Anybody? Like, you buy the most expensive tights. I don't know why. I'm not a tight kind of guy. And you're just like, I know the gym. I know, like, you start really well. Some of you are great at starting Bible reading plans. That's why you've read the first 20 chapters of Genesis and nothing else. Just a little pro pastor tip. In January, when you do that again, start at Genesis 21. You get 20 chapters a year. You're going to get close to the end. Should God give you a long life, you'll get through the whole Bible. So we're great at starting, but we're not always great at finishing. And Jesus indicates that we should start with the end in mind. And the good news is, not only does he want you to go the distance, he wants to carry you the distance, but you do have a part to play. Paul framed Jesus' part like this in Philippians 1, verse 6. Being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Aren't you glad that Jesus is committed to going the distance? The question isn't, is Jesus willing to go the distance with me in my faith? The question is, will you go the distance? See, Jesus wants you to go all the way when it comes to your life, your faith, and the assignments that he has for you while you're living here on this earth. The question for you is this: are you positioned to go the distance? Are you positioned to go the distance? We're all on a faith journey, and we talk about that language all the time here at Epic, and it is a journey, but when you set out for a journey, you want to go the distance, right? You want to go you want to go the distance. Sean and I we got to see our oldest son this week, which was just thrilling. I hadn't seen him in 6 weeks, and as we're headed back to the airport after seeing him, you know how sometimes ladies, you're really subtle with your spouse? You're like, you're like, hey, I love that you're so confident that we can make it on that little guess. But we made it. But what I knew is that, no, if we're going to get where we need to go, we've got to fuel up, and we had to. I'm afraid that some of you have great aspirations for living the life God has for you, but you haven't positioned yourself for that life. Like you don't have the practices, the tools, the maturity to go the distance. So if you're not careful, what you will have done is set yourself up for a sprint, but this is a long distance game Jesus is calling us into. And he wants you to go the distance. And so are you positioned to go the distance? If you're going to go the distance Jesus has in mind, you need to understand that sacrifice will be required. And we love that word, don't we? And anybody just have that, like that's your word of the year, sacrifice? Just looking for a sacrifice everywhere. Well, we don't love that word, but it's required. And there are two wrong assumptions many of us have about sacrifice. The first one is this. Some of us believe that if we're going to live the life God's called us to live, it should never be hard. It should never be costly. We forget what our whole faith is founded on, right? Others of us believe because something is hard in the beginning that it will be hard forever. But here's the principle. If we pay the price sacrifice demands on the front end, it tends to bring tremendous blessing on the back end. If you pay the price sacrifice demands on the front end, it will usually bring tremendous blessing on the back end. It is a natural human instinct to want to avoid pain. Every person in this room at some point in our lives has set our life up to stay away from any form of pain, yes? Like, I don't want to experience pain. We put up walls. We don't step into new things. Wherever pain is, we stay away from it. And there is some pain you should stay away from. You should stay away from any pain that damages your mind, damages your body, damages your relationship, or damages your witness for Jesus, yes? But not all pain is bad pain. To take it a step further, pain is often a sign we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. If you don't go through the pain of lifting weights, you will never get stronger physically. So I've been told. If you skip out on every difficult conversation, you will never work through conflict with people, and you can never have a close relationship without working through conflict. If you don't go through the pain of waking up in the middle of the night when your infant is screaming, you cannot become the kind of parent nurturing that child that you want to be. Pain is often a sign you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You are going to have pain in your life. So here's the big idea that I talk about a lot. So you probably have heard this, but maybe we're not living into it yet. Choose front-end pain over back-end pain. Pain's coming for you. Pain's coming for you. Pain's coming for you. And everyone over here, choose pain on the front end. Otherwise, you will have pain on the back end. Front end pain looks like doing a new thing usually. Front end pain looks like vulnerability. Front end pain looks like going to therapy when you've never been before. Front end pain looks like starting a new spiritual practice. But back end pain, friends, it looks like regret, missed opportunities, and wishing you had chosen front end pain. Think about this epic community. What does front-end pain versus back-end pain look like? Front-end pain looks like showing up for the first time, so congratulations. Front-end pain looks like going to a small group when you're afraid there are going to be weird Christians there. Newsflash, there probably will be one or two weird Christians there. If there aren't any, you might be the weird Christian when you show up. Front-end pain looks like being afraid to go through with baptism, though you started following Jesus. But back-end pain looks like being stuck in your spiritual growth. Back-end pain looks like being afraid to let people at work know that you're a follower of Jesus. Back-end pain looks like living in isolation, having no one who knows you really and no one there to care for you. That's what back-end pain looks like. Hebrews 12:11 really captures everything I want to say from a message today. It says this, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for who? Those who have been trained by it. No discipline seems pleasant at the time. And because that's true, a lot of you are opting out of the thing that God has for you because you don't want to go through any pain. All discipline is painful in the beginning. But if you will stay with it, there's a harvest coming for you. Can I remind us that we're not trying to live the easiest life we can imagine. We're trying to live the life that God imagined for us. Let me say that again. Act like you want to. Can I remind us, we're not trying to live the easiest life imaginable. We're trying to get in on the one life God has imagined for us. Like, you don't start a company because it's the easiest thing. You don't change industries because it's the easiest thing. You don't start a church because it's the easiest thing. You don't get married. I hope you didn't get married because you thought it would be the easiest thing. Anybody? You don't have children because it's going to be the easiest thing. And you don't follow Jesus because it's the smallest commitment you could imagine. You do all of those kinds of things because they're the best kinds of things and they actually are worth the price you have to pay to get them. I wonder how many of you are just a few disciplines away from having the marriage you think is impossible for you. I wonder how many of you are just a couple of moments of feeling uncomfortable going public with your faith in this baptistry because you just can't imagine doing this in front of people. I wonder how many of you are just a couple of courageous sentences away from inviting a coworker to church, but right now they don't even know you come. So here's the question. Where are you currently avoiding pain that will cause significant regret in your future? There's probably an answer to the question for all of us. Where you're like, no, I'm unwilling to do it. And if you're unwilling to do that, you're going to be stuck in regret land for the rest of your life. What cost are you unwilling to pay? If you sacrifice for the right thing early on, you will often receive way more than you ever give. But if you don't, you will often miss out on what God wanted to give. Let me give you 3 areas where sacrifice will probably be required. If you're going to step into what God has for you, if he's trying to do a new thing in your life, if he's trying to bring out what he put in you, you will probably have to sacrifice in at least these 3 areas. The first one is this, your time. Your time. If you're going to do a new thing, it's probably going to take an investment of time on the front end, right? Like you might have, shocker here, you might have to stop watching TV for a season. You might need to shut down social media for a season or forever. You might need to start saying no to the kinds of things you've been accustomed to saying yes to. In this season of my life, I am saying more no's than probably I've ever said before. And you're like, Ben, we know. I told a guy in the lobby, he's like, you think you're going to be able to show up at that thing? I was like, hey, man, I've been telling everybody else no. I gave you a maybe. But guys, what is on my plate right now that I'm pretty sure the assignments God has for me, I'm saying no to really good things. It's just a season. I'm trying to lead our church into this glorious future. I'm trying to do a whole lot of things. I had a chance to see one of my sons this past week. The other one's going to be in the house this time next week who are at college, and I'm always going to prioritize that without apology. Even if we're moving to a building, I'm going to prioritize that too. But if you and I will invest and sacrifice our time on the front end, oftentimes that time we give up will multiply later, won't it? So just ask yourself one simple question out of that one. Where am I avoiding the pain of investing and sacrificing my time that I will regret not investing later? The second area is money. Whatever the new thing is, it's probably going to take some money to do it. Some of you are like, okay, I'm willing to go to therapy, but I've got to pay for it. Yeah, you do, but it'll probably pay off for you if you do the right thing. Therapist is like, amen. She'll have her business card in the lobby. I'm not getting a kickback. But seriously, if you're going to start something new, you'll probably have to buy equipment, read some books, attend a conference, right? But this is a business, but I think also a spiritual principle. If you will pay, just like with time, it'll multiply later. If you pay for things on the front end, you'll probably get paid on the back end more. And maybe that's not always financially, but where are you not willing to pay? You're like, and you say like, I'm just too cheap. No, you're forfeiting the future that could be yours. The other thing you've got to be able to sacrifice is comfort. We love comfort, don't we? Anybody? It's just easy for you to get out of bed when it's cold in the house. It's going to be 46 a low tomorrow. Why I'm telling you that, I don't know, but like comfort. But we won't grow unless we step from comfort into discomfort. Where are you unwilling to sacrifice your comfort now that you will regret later on? And here's what's really interesting to note. You and I do have to sacrifice our comfort, but aren't you glad we never have to sacrifice God's comfort for us? And I tend to think God's comfort in my life shows up most when I'm stepping into the most uncomfortable situations I've ever been in. Anybody else? So step in, sacrifice your comfort. You don't have to sacrifice his comfort. It's fascinating, though. Our whole Christian faith is built off this idea of front-end pain over back-end pain. Like we're like, oh, geez, just imagine this. Like just have some fun with me. A little levity this morning. Jesus, I can't believe I've got to go through this painful thing to get to the good thing. He's like, yeah, I don't know what that's like. Jesus, it hurts. I know it'll be better. He's like, yeah, I can't relate. My gosh. Our Savior put on flesh. Could have called angels to lift him off the cross, but he didn't. You've got to tell me why. Ben, the reason why is he chose front-end pain over the back-end pain. He would rather go through that horrific reality than be left without having a remnant of people who belong to his heavenly Father. Anybody glad he chose front-end pain? You and I are never going to be asked to follow in his footsteps to that full extent, but he says in this text, if you don't carry your cross, and follow me, you cannot be my disciple. And some of you at this point, you're like, Ben, I just want to be a Christian. I don't want to be a disciple. God, can I tell him? The world is confused about this. Friends, there are no Christians who are not disciples. But Ben, I put Christian whenever I fill out the survey. You can put it and not be in it. There are no such thing as Christians who aren't disciples. It doesn't exist. What would that even mean? Well, it just sounds like Christian, that when they were first called Christians in Acts, they just meant they were little Christ. Little Christ need to do what big Christ did. Pay the price for the reward or live with the regret. You know, all this talk about sacrifice, front end pain over back end pain, it can make us feel like we need to strive in our own strength to live the life God has for us, right? But here's the reality with striving. Striving will exhaust you and still leave you short of the line God has for you. Jesus said it this way: I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. No. Apart from me, you can do nothing. The word remain there, the word I like better is the word abide. The literal Greek word is this word meno that Rich Velotis taught us about at Focus in 2019. But it's this idea of making your home in Jesus, abiding in him. And with Jesus and your connection to him, you can do whatever the hard thing is, but you're not doing it alone. The truth is this: you cannot bear fruit on your own, but you are not on your own. Whatever God has for you to do, you can't do it by yourself. Some of us just want to tap into a small life because we're like, do I have what it takes? The question is not, do you have what it takes? The question is, will God be with you as you do the thing he's calling you to do where you don't have what it takes, but he has what it takes? Some of you're just playing for a small life. And oh man, now I'm going into like coach and whatever. You have one life. Stop playing it small. He is a great God. If I took your approach, this church wouldn't exist. What is the world going to miss out on if you keep playing it safe? The production booth's like, Ben, this is not in the notes. I know. It's in my heart. Here's the difference between striving and abiding. It will not be on the screen, but let me give it to you. Striving looks like endless hustle. Abiding has rhythms of work and rest. Striving tends to bring anxiety for me. Anybody else? Abiding usually creates more peace. Striving distracts us from what matters most, but abiding will keep us close to God and the things and people close to God's heart for our lives. Striving is about earning. Abiding is about receiving. Striving brings despair when there's failure and arrogance when there's success, but abiding will keep you humble and confident. Striving mostly, the last 168 hours. Abiding mostly. Jesus promises that we will bear fruit if we abide in him, but most of us want that fruit to come overnight, don't we? You ever been there? I have. Like, God, I prayed about this 2 hours ago. Where is it? God's like, Amazon Prime does that for you, Ben, but I'm not in that business. And I wonder how many times some of us have given up because we didn't get it soon enough. And we need to take from Galatians 6:9, my favorite verse probably about the law of sowing and reaping that God has woven into the fabric of our universe. It says this: let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if... Yeah, I wonder how many of us have given up right before the harvest came. Imagine that a vineyard owner, he takes over in August and he's like, I am all in on this. There are grapes on the vines. He's loving August. He's loving September. He's loving a little bit of October, depending on what kind of climate we had that year. But imagine he goes on a trip. He comes back in January and there are no grapes. He's like, I'm done with this. That's how a lot of us approach it. He's like, I'm done with this. Where are the grapes? But what he needs to know, especially his first time around, take care of the soil while there are no grapes, and you will have grapes come August. I wonder how many of us have given up because we got tired of sowing when the reaping didn't come fast enough. Listen, there is usually a distance between sowing and reaping, but you will eventually reap what you sow. And let me tell you a huge lesson that's helped me. I cannot reap what I want to every single day. Anybody else? I have goals for our church that I'm not going to reap today. I have goals for my marriage, my family, right? Are you with me? I'm not going to reap today. I cannot reap every single day, but you know what I can do every single day? I can sow. You can't keep me from sowing. Like literally, I can wake up tomorrow and do something in the scripture and prayer realm, and it won't necessarily make the thing I'm desiring God to do happen, but guess what? I'm going to sow into it. And it may be 11 years when you see your guy reaping up here. It may be 14 years. It may be 2 months. I don't know, but some of you, you've given up because you thought the reaping was too far away, so you're not even sowing, so the reaping will never come. Do you know what we would, you see, I'm convinced there's some of us who've just stepped in Johnny-come-latelys, you're like, 414 Brandon, that's so cool. It is so cool, but do you know what's been sown for the last 15 years? I'll be able to appreciate it in a way a lot of you won't. Not because I'm the pastor. I've just seen what's gone into the soil, and so many of you have been a part of the story. The people who will be most emotional are those who paid the highest price. While you cannot know exactly what your future holds, you can position yourself for that future. Because you got to know, whatever path you take has inevitable conclusions. So listen, if you're single, you're on a path. If you're married, you're on a path. If you're in tech, you're on a path. If you're young, you're on a path. If you're old, you're on a path. And I just want you to look at all the kind of major categories of your life and go, what path am I on? And then do that vision thing. Where is this path going to lead? If I keep spending this much time on Instagram, how many hours will that be over my lifetime? If I keep this character weakness, what will I forfeit seeing God do in my life? If I keep this addiction to pornography, what will I miss out on? If I never start leading in the church, what will atrophy in my life? Are you with me? You have a future self. Are you creating a future self? Your future self will be glad you created. Of course, with the help of the one who's called you to abide in him. One of the keys, if we're going to continue to become the men and women, boys and girls that God called us to be, we've got to have this posture of a lifetime of growth. Wherever you have the arrival mindset living in your life, please get rid of it. We want to grow. I think about 2 growth areas always in my life. If I'm coaching anyone else, the 2 growth areas I want to pursue is my character and my skills. Here's what Scripture says about David, Psalm 78, verse 72. It says, "And David shepherded them with integrity of heart. With skillful hands he led them." So if you want to just I'm always looking for, what is a simple template? And here's the template. I want to grow in the area of my character weaknesses, and I want to grow in the area of my talent, skill, and gift strengths. I'm always asking this question, and here's the question I like to ask about character. You've heard it before, probably. But what is present in your life that could hijack God's vision for your future? What is the thing that's going to take you out? What is the thing that's going to put you in regret land? I'm trying to think of a good joke to soften this a little bit. I don't have one. Can I just... Can I just play the role of a spiritual father for a moment? And I don't need you doing the math and telling me I'm too young to be your father. What I am carrying in this moment is a father's heart. I know some of you have been through hell. I know some of you were handed a very different deck of cards in life than others of us were handed. And I don't know what scars you're carrying today. I don't know what wounds, but I imagine there are all kinds of scars and all kinds of wounds. And around here, we don't compare our pain to each other's pain. We just say, hey, I'm so sorry that happened, but I believe God wants to meet you in the middle of that. And I just want you to know that the Father that we sang about earlier, Like he wants to pour himself out into your heart. But some of you, because others who should have been father, mother type figures in your life didn't do what they should have done, you've closed your heart off to every human. But unfortunately, in closing your heart off to every human, you've also closed your heart to God. And maybe what I'm asking for is, Seth, John, team, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and come up front. Here's what maybe I'm asking for today. Would you give your Heavenly Father another chance today? Not because he let you down, but because maybe people representing him let you down. If you're a prayer ministry leader, would you go ahead and come to the front as well as back by the production booth? And I just believe that there's a lot that God wants to do in a short amount of time, perhaps, or at least start a process on. Whatever the painful thing is that you're avoiding, not the bad pain, but the good kind of pain, I want you to know, like, God wants to be with you in that. For some of you, that's going to look like reconciling a relationship. That's really hard. For some of you, it's going to be a public faith move. I know that's not easy, but it's worth it. For some of you, that's going to be opening yourself up to the possibility that God might have something different than the industry you're in that feels very safe and comfortable. I don't know what it is. For some of you, because of what God's up to in our church, he's going to call you into leadership. And for you to say yes means you've got to make yourself known and go, hey, I don't know how to do all the things God's calling me to do, but I'm saying yes. So go ahead and stand with me. I want to pray for you. This altar is open. And some of you are like, hey, this is the point at which you just sort of hold on to the chair in front of you because you don't want to respond to what God's laying on your heart. I just want to say, hey, battle the crowd and make yourself known to God. Say, God, I need you. I need to know that you're a father. I need to know that whatever the hard thing is you're asking me to step into, it is worth it. You guys, God is not done writing your story. So why are you? You're not done. After 9 o'clock, a man came up to me. He said, it's my second week at Epic. I'm so glad to be here. He said, I just got out of prison after 43 years. If anybody has the right to believe they're done, it's him. And Kenneth's showing up and going, hey, I'm not done. He's not done with me. Are you with me? So what is your excuse again? But Ben, I have a past. Same. And it's been nailed to the cross, so I'm free. I'm on my way to be whoever he wants me to be. Do you not want to walk the same path? But Ben, I'm too young. You are not. Ben, I'm too old. You're not. Ben, I'm too poor. I'm too rich. You're not. You're either willing to let God write your story or you're unwilling. It really all comes down to that. So God, I pray that you would pour out your spirit and that you would pour willingness into our hearts. Thank you for being a God who is so willing to raise dead men and women back to life, willing to pay the price at great cost. The scripture says, Jesus, you loved us and you gave yourself up for us. How could we not give up some things for you to step into the life we were made for? God, as we bring it out chapter to a close, I pray, oh God, I pray that everything you've put in us will be brought out for your glory, the sake of others, and our own deep fulfillment. Move, Holy Spirit. Yes is our response. All right, church, let's respond. The altar's open. We're ready to pray with you.